Ever wondered how biopharmaceutical companies improve patient outcomes? Well, the answer might surprise you. The secret sauce is a concept called integrated evidence generation. It's a game changer, a paradigm shift in the way these companies operate. This isn't about a single study or a solitary breakthrough. Instead, it's about creating a comprehensive plan that considers the needs of everyone involved, from clinicians and payers to the patients themselves. Each stakeholder requires different types of evidence to make decisions. Regulators are now accepting real-world evidence alongside the traditional randomized controlled trials to approve drugs. Payers are looking for solid evidence to make complex coverage and reimbursement decisions. Clinicians are seeking support to understand and use new therapies effectively. And patients? Their engagement is more crucial than ever, with their reported data being used as evidence in drug approvals. This integrated approach helps biopharma companies optimize resources, reduce costs, avoid duplicating efforts, and fill critical evidence gaps. It's not just about making a difference, it's about making the right difference. Now let's dive into what integrated evidence generation really is. Integrated evidence generation sounds complex, right? But it's simpler than you might think. Let's dive into the world of biopharmaceuticals, where integrated evidence generation is causing a paradigm shift. Now, what exactly is integrated evidence generation? It's an approach that is crucial for understanding and improving patient outcomes. Imagine you're building a puzzle, each piece representing a piece of evidence. Now, instead of trying to fit random pieces together, you have a well-thought-out plan to guide you. That's essentially what integrated evidence generation plans, or IEPs, are all about. IEPs take into account the needs of different stakeholders. Picture a round table with clinicians, payers, patients, and regulators, all having their unique perspectives and needs. An IEP is like a roadmap, considering each of their requirements throughout the life cycle of a therapy. Regulators, for instance, are increasingly accepting real-world evidence alongside the traditional randomized controlled trials for drug approvals. This shift provides a broader and more practical perspective on the potential outcomes of a therapy. Then we have the payers, who require evidence to make complex coverage and reimbursement decisions. Different countries prioritize different types of evidence, and an IEP ensures that this diversity of needs is accounted for. Clinicians, the ones on the front line of patient care, need support in understanding and using new therapies. Real-world evidence is being used to address their concerns, providing a more comprehensive view of a therapy's application in diverse real-life scenarios. Lastly, patients, the central figures in all of this, are also being given more importance. Patient-reported data is now being used as evidence in drug approvals, marking a significant shift towards patient-centric care. So in essence, an IEP is a tool that helps optimize resource allocation, reduce costs, avoid duplication of evidence generation, and fill critical evidence gaps. It's like having a master key that helps unlock the potential of therapies in a way that is beneficial for all stakeholders involved. With such a comprehensive approach, you might be wondering, how does it change the industry? Integrated evidence generation is more than just a buzzword, it's a game changer. It has the potential to revolutionize the biopharmaceutical industry by optimizing resource allocation, reducing costs, avoiding duplication, and filling critical evidence gaps. Let's start with resource allocation. Integrated evidence generation allows for strategic planning throughout a therapy's life cycle. This approach not only ensures that resources are used effectively, but also that the right data is generated at the right time. It's about getting the most bang for your buck, so to speak. Next, we have cost reduction. Traditionally, generating evidence has been an expensive and time-consuming process. But by integrating the process, companies can streamline their operations and cut down on unnecessary expenses. No more redundant studies or duplicated efforts. It's about doing more with less. Then there's the avoidance of duplication. In the past, different stakeholders might have conducted separate studies or trials to gather the evidence they needed. But with an integrated approach, these stakeholders can collaborate, sharing data and resources. This means less repetition and more efficiency. It's about working smarter, not harder. And finally, we have the filling of critical evidence gaps. With integrated evidence generation, companies can ensure that they're not just generating data, but generating the right data. They can identify and fill any gaps in the evidence, ensuring that their therapies are as effective as possible. It's about leaving no stone unturned. But integrated evidence generation is not a solo act. It involves a cast of key players: regulators, payers, clinicians, and patients. Regulators are increasingly accepting real-world evidence alongside traditional clinical trials. Payers require comprehensive evidence to make informed coverage and reimbursement decisions. Clinicians need support in understanding and using new therapies. And patients, their voices are growing louder and more influential, with their reported data being used as evidence in drug approvals. But what does this mean for the future of biopharma? The future of biopharma is here, and it's driven by integrated evidence generation. As we look forward, it's clear that integrated evidence generation will revolutionize the biopharma landscape. It's not just about changing how we understand diseases or therapies anymore, it's about changing the very fabric of the industry. This new approach will shape everything, from drug approvals to coverage and reimbursement decisions, to how we understand and use new therapies. It's a game changer. Think about drug approvals, for example. Traditionally, they've relied heavily on the results of randomized controlled trials, but regulators are now increasingly accepting real-world evidence alongside these trials. This is a significant shift that has the potential to speed up drug development and bring new treatments to patients faster. It's a shift that's only possible because of integrated evidence generation. Then there's the issue of coverage and reimbursement decisions. These are complex decisions that require a deep understanding of a drug's effectiveness and value. Different countries prioritize different types of evidence, and an integrated approach allows for a more comprehensive view. By considering the needs of different stakeholders, we can make these decisions more accurately and efficiently. And let's not forget about the understanding and usage of new therapies. Clinicians need support to understand and use these therapies effectively. Real-world evidence is increasingly being used to address their concerns and to improve patient outcomes. It's about creating an evidence-based healthcare system that benefits everyone involved, from clinicians and patients to payers and regulators. But it's not just about the here and now. Integrated evidence generation is also about the future. It's about optimizing resource allocation, reducing costs, and avoiding duplication. It's about filling critical evidence gaps and making the biopharma industry more efficient and effective. It's a paradigm shift that will have far-reaching implications for years to come. So how is this all put into practice? From theory to practice, let's see how biopharma companies are using integrated evidence generation. In the real world, biopharmaceutical companies are making strides by implementing integrated evidence generation plans, or IEPs. These companies are creating well-rounded plans that consider the needs of various stakeholders throughout the life cycle of a therapy. This isn't just a trend, it's a strategic approach that's transforming the industry. One of the key areas that IEPs are making a significant impact is in the realm of regulatory approvals. Traditionally, regulators relied heavily on randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, for drug approvals. But now they're increasingly accepting real-world evidence, or RWE, as a valid form of evidence. This shift has allowed biopharma companies to expedite their approval processes by leveraging the wealth of data available in the real world. For instance, let's consider the case of a biopharma company launching a new cancer treatment. By integrating RWE, the company can gather data on the drug's effectiveness in actual patients, not just those in controlled trials. This provides a broader perspective on the drug's performance, aiding in quicker, more informed decision-making by regulators. Integrated evidence generation isn't just beneficial for regulatory approvals, but also for coverage and reimbursement decisions. Payers require robust evidence to make these complex decisions, and biopharma companies are stepping up by providing a comprehensive view of their therapies. They're prioritizing different types of evidence based on the needs of different countries. For instance, a biopharma company might leverage real-world patient-reported data to justify the cost of a novel therapy in a country where patient outcomes are a key concern. This approach not only demonstrates the value of the therapy, but also helps to build trust with payers. On the front line, clinicians are also reaping the benefits of integrated evidence generation. With the influx of new therapies, clinicians need support in understanding and using these treatments effectively. Real-world evidence is playing a critical role here, addressing concerns and providing insights that help clinicians make the best decisions for their patients. Lastly, let's not forget about the patients themselves. Patient engagement is growing in importance, and companies are using patient-reported data as a key piece of evidence in drug approvals. This approach is fostering a more patient-centric model, where patients' experiences and outcomes are at the forefront of therapy development and approval. It's clear that integrated evidence generation is changing the face of biopharma. But what are the key takeaways? Integrated evidence generation isn't just revolutionizing biopharma, it's setting a new standard. As we journeyed through this topic, we've seen how integrated evidence generation is becoming crucial for biopharmaceutical companies. It's not just about understanding patient outcomes, but also about improving them. This is achieved by creating integrated evidence generation plans that take into account the needs of various stakeholders, from clinicians and payers to the patients themselves. We've seen how real-world evidence is gaining acceptance alongside randomized controlled trials for drug approvals. This is a significant shift in the industry, highlighting the value of real-world experiences and data in complementing clinical trial results. It's not just about the lab results anymore, but also about how the therapy works in the real world, which can often be a different scenario altogether. We've also discussed the growing importance of patient engagement, with patient-reported data being used as evidence in drug approvals. This is a testament to the shifting focus towards patient-centric care, where the patient's experience and feedback are considered vital in understanding and improving therapeutic outcomes. Payers who make complex coverage and reimbursement decisions require evidence to back their choices, and integrated evidence generation is stepping up to meet this need. The approach helps optimize resource allocation, reduce costs, avoid duplication of evidence generation, and fill critical evidence gaps. Looking towards the future of biopharma, we see that many companies are already effectively using integrated evidence generation plans to address various evidence needs. The impact of this paradigm shift is far-reaching, affecting not just the biopharma industry but also the healthcare sector as a whole, ultimately leading to better patient care and outcomes. As we continue to witness this paradigm shift, one thing is clear: integrated evidence generation is the future of biopharma.